Welcome back to the Ruck Shop's YouTube channel. In today's video we will be installing the PSP Gy6 plug and play harness on this recently swapped Gy6 Ruckus. In this video we're going to be installing the TRS mount plate for the harness components. We're going to be installing the PSP harness here, and then potentially using the crimp tools and the spare plugs that are provided with that harness. What I'm going to do is start from the front half of the bike, and then we'll work our way back to the rear. This should be a fairly easy install, as this harness comes with just about everything needed. Depending on what controls that you have or brake switches that you're using, it should be direct plug and play. If not, that is what these clips are for, so everything should be covered for this video. The first thing I'm going to do is put this component plate on. What you're going to do is use the factory bolts that are here, along with this one here. So there's two 8mm and one 10mm. I already took the 8mm off. I'm going to remove the 10mm now, and then we'll put it back on with the plate. Next, we're going to take the plate, pull it up, line up the hole, and start to tighten this up. Leave it a little loose so you can line up these other two spots right here, and then put those bolts in as well. So next, what I'd suggest doing is removing the rectifier, the starter solenoid, and the CDI. We're going to put those on the component tray here, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I have the components now on the component plate. I have unplugged them from the harness. The CDI has a little rubber grip on the back that just slides over like that. With the starter solenoid, you use a zip tie. You go through the two little sleeves, wrap it around, and wrap around this bracket here. Fastens it in place. For the rectifier, you're going to need two. I used M6 by 16s. You could probably get away with M6 by 12s, and then nylock nuts on the back. And now you mounted the rectifier to the plate here. So there you go, you got your components on there. That's good. Next thing we're going to do is start bringing the wires up, and then eventually we'll connect these back to the original harness and tuck it all behind this plate here. You're going to have a clip here that has two yellow wires. That's going to be for your start button. This one right here has the push button momentary start. It was already wired up with a 2-pin clip, so that's kind of helpful. That you could just plug right in like so and leave it there. The rest of this stuff, minus the clear relay, you can essentially run through here, this little tunnel, and pull out through the top here, and that's where you're going to run the rest of the components. So I'm going to kind of unwind the clear relay here, and then this stuff will cross over and tuck under. So I'll show you where those grounds go next while I start to move over to this side of the frame. It'll go right here. So this frame has been powder coated, which chances are yours might be as well if you've started to do a full build. If your front frame is still raw, then it should still be raw metal and you'll be alright. What you're going to do is take the ground wires that are tied up, put the bolt through, and then you're going to bolt that into the front frame right there. I'm going to open this up just a little bit more so it has a good continuity when it's grounded out, and then put that bolt in, and then we'll have the ground set for the front of the bike. Okay, so basically just following what PSP gives you. They have a full printout of instructions that you can use to follow which pins go where, which is very, very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and just start plugging in the components first because I know where those go. So what I did is I pulled all the wires, like I said, through, so they're all kind of coming through the top here. Now certain ones I'll run back down to go to the components like the CDI, because essentially this can't cross over there. So I'll push it down, grab it with my other hand, comes underneath, and then I'll just pin that in. And like that, the CDI is done. Next you have the starter solenoid, which is green with the yellow. You'll plug that in, yellow with the green. You're gonna have some extra slack here, so what you can do is you can wrap this up, get a nice wrap going on it, spin it around, and then you can either zip tie it, electric tape it, and then tuck that behind here. And bring that out of the way. Now you still are going to have the two red wires that go to this to allow the starter to work. So we can't forget about that. On the side here we have the black and green with yellow stripe, or yellow with green stripe. That's your brake switches. So I have the brakes right here. I'll run that down. Luckily these were already pinned with the male pins there, so I'll put one in the black and one in the green. And the same, I'll run this other brake switch wire through and plug these in as well. So now you have the brake switch out of the way. He has the CNC mini switch from the Ruck shop, which is right here. Is the blinkers, horn, high, low. I had pinned it using the supplied pins and clip from PSP. Put the correct terminals in there and just followed the diagram between what the Ruck shop says for the color and then what the PSP says for the color as well. So I'll go ahead and plug that in. That one's going to be the 9-pin clip. So we have that right here. Run this through. Now again, you can go ahead and make this a lot cleaner if you cut up the wires, shorten them, because this does give you a lot of slack, and then the harness allows for some slack as well. Before the video, we are going to go ahead and leave it how it is, just so you guys get the idea on the install. We next have the regulator or the rectifier. Now you can either run these in front of the plate or behind the plate. I think we're going to run it behind because there's still a lot of room back here. And again, it's just going to be a little bit cleaner look without having to shorten anything. So I'll tuck both these down, catch it with the other hand, pull them through, and plug them in. So this black and green is a spare power and ground, which you could use if you're going to plug in a vapor gauge. There's another pin clip for that from the PSP harness. Another clip right here, which is the green, purple, and brown. And then there's the blue, orange, and green. This is your ground, and then your front blinkers, as well as your headlight clip. So if you have the factory headlight harness, which will look like this, this will plug right into it, and then your blinkers will go into the bolt connectors right there, and then you go ahead and plug in your headlights. Now in the front here, we relocated the horn to inside the battery box, and here's the 2 prongs for it right there. We are going to go ahead and take the horn wires off the PSP harness and then plug those in. Now if you're doing it this method, I found it's easiest to run the wires behind the battery cage and then bring it out like so, and then you would just slide over one prong and then the same with the other. It doesn't matter which one goes on where, it will still do the same job. So now that you have the horn on, the next step is going to be for this red wire that we tucked around that goes to ignition. So the one that has the 2 wires that are taped together, that's going to go to the positive terminal. So you're going to leave that over here along with the fuse. Now what you're going to do is run the other red wire, the long one, around to the other terminal of the starter relay. So now over here you have your 2 negative terminal, your 2 positive terminal, and then your fuse box all right here. Now back to this side, I will go ahead and put the washer, the lock washer, and the nut back on the solenoid here. Use the 10mm and tighten this up. Now what you can do is you can run some electrical tape over this, or if you have the TRS starter solenoid cover, you can put the starter solenoid cover over this. You want to keep these prongs from touching anything else that could be metal. Granted, the battery box is plastic, but just for safety measures, I would at least put some tape over the prongs if you don't have the TRS cover. So that's how it would look with the starter solenoid on there. Now you can keep it like this if you're using the tray. If not, I like to put the starter solenoid over on the other side here by the front. So I'll go ahead and show you that method as well, just in case you're not using this. So now the starter solenoid I moved over here. In case you don't have one of the plates, this is where I recommend putting it. You can utilize the 2 loops in there and just run a tie through it to the harness right here. This keeps it steady and not bouncing around. I threw some electrical tape over here, or you could use our starter cover. And then what I did is I ran the clear relay wires up through here, and then you could just tie that off to the post instead. So you can still utilize that post if you want to put your starter solenoid here, put the clear relay there. If you're not using this, then usually I put 3M tape with the clear relay right there so it's sitting up. So there's a couple different options for you. So again, on this side here, you have the negative wires coming through, flash a relay, and then you have your 2 positive wires which go to the terminal right there. Your fuse, you can 3M tape it to the underneath the bottom of ignition here like that if you'd like. There's no real set place for it. Going down, you have the loom running along under the channel. With this harness, he kept the clamp there so it goes through, and then we're going to run the back half of the bike now. Okay, so carrying it to the back half of the harness, we just run the loop up. I like to cross it over to go behind this bar here. So then you're going to have the stator with the 2 pickup wires. You'll have the smaller ground cable, which we'll put to the valve cover. We'll have the red starter cable wire, so I kind of run that underneath the motor mount there, and it'll go right to there. You have the larger of the black ground, so I run that under the mount as well, and then go over to the starter solenoid, one of the little 8mm bolts there. You will also have the pre-pin tail light. There we go. Which is already done for you, so we'll run that under into the back here. And then lastly, you'll have the 2 wires, and it already comes pre-plugged into the coil. I'm just going to unplug it. We'll plug the coil in and then go from there. Alright, so I plugged in the stator wire here. There's 2 red wires. There's a red with a black tracer. That's going to go to the black with the red tracer. You have a solid red one. That's going to go to the blue with the white tracer. So that's plugged together. Go ahead and tuck this down here. The tail light I will leave to the side. The next one we're going to do is the small ground. I'm going to go to the lower valve cover bolt, which is down here. So I'll take that out, go ahead and put that in. I'll give you a better view once I have that bolted in and go through the rest here. So to keep these wires together, I'm probably going to throw maybe 2 zip ties on it, one right here and then one right here to keep them bunched up nice and tight. And then I'll get to the back half where I'll do the last ground there and then the starter wire. So when doing the starter wire to the back of the starter, sometimes your motor comes with like a mini harness coming off of it and it has a red clip. Usually I say cut that off, save this portion, because you could use it as the backing nut and the bolt for the starter wire to the terminal. Okay, so now I have the brake light hooked up according to the PSP diagram. Ran the wire over there. Looks pretty clean from the side profile here, which usually a lot of people look at when you look at the bike. I think eventually the owner's going to go with a different type of coil, so that's just kind of a temporary thing. So you can see all the wires ran behind here. This way they're sitting behind the stretch bar, you don't see them. Very simple thing to do. You can even buy a 1/2-inch loom and then go over this whole bundle with one individual loom and make it even cleaner. So we have all that there. Red wires on the starter motor. The ground. The bigger grounds to the back of the starter. We have the smaller ground going to the valve cover there. The loom comes down and under. This is for if you have a fuel sending unit like a Metropolitan one, it's already pre-wired up to work with like a COSO gauge. Harness goes up, comes over. Now this is just how you can do it at home without cutting any wires, shortening them. If you want to cut it, short it, that's up to you. Harness works great as it is. Still really clean for what it is right now. You can test it by, if you have everything hooked up, you turn the ignition on. Now you should notice the green light turn on, so now I know that at least that's getting power. The grounds are all correct. If I hit the brake, good there. Blinker. So it's slow, as you can see. So one way to do is you can adjust it under here. So underneath the middle here, there's a little flathead, and you can adjust the pulse rate. So I'll end up adjusting that, turning it a little bit quicker. You have the horn. It's good. And then one thing that you can do is just tap the starter. Right now I don't have a carburetor or anything on it, so I'm not even going to make like a cycle on it, but you can just bump it like that, and then you at least hear that the starter's turning over. So that is all good to go. I'll turn the ignition off and then go ahead and button this up. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll have more videos coming out for the channel with new products and different product breakdown like we have done in our breakdown series. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we will catch you guys on the next one.